Well, this is Kevin Men with Outside the Games. I have a great guest with us today. This is Coach Thomas Ford. He is a quality control analyst, kind of the X's and O's of things over at University of Washington. He's been there for around 6 months. Hey, Coach Ford, pleasure to have you on our show.
Man, Kevin, it's great to be here, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's wonderful. We're kind of going around the Pac-12 a little bit with some coaches, and really we always start out here, Coach Ford, with regards to family and how you would define it. Because again, student athletes have their own perspective how they define family, but
Sure.
for coaches, I mean, you were once a student athlete yourself, so tell me how you would define family and why.
Well, I think family is really that group of people that is close to you, that truly cares about you and your best interest. And I think a lot of times, obviously, that can be biological family. Obviously for me, my family is pretty important. I got 2 young children, a wife, and brothers, and mom and dad that are nearby. So, obviously my immediate family is definitely part of that. But I would consider a lot more people outside of my immediate family as part of family. Like I said, I think it's people that care about you, want to see you do really well in your life and your career, and obviously that care about you and are willing to give you the tough love when you need it too. I think family members are those that tell you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear, and so that doesn't necessarily have to be anybody that's the same bloodlines as you by any stretch, man.
Yeah, the funny thing you say that, I like what you said there with regards to a lot of times people in their circle, they have the yes people, right? The ones that always say, yeah, things are great, going fine, you're wonderful, you're doing what you need to do. Coach, you're kind of telling it how it is in an aspect of like, hey, I got to have people that are straight with me.
100%. I mean, I know for me, I've got plenty of those type of friends, and again, those guys that I consider family that are quick to either give me advice when I'm doing things well, and obviously when I'm not doing things well. And I think, again, like you said, you kind of touched on it. There's plenty of people that are going to tell you how great you are. Especially if you're a really good athlete, they're going to tell you how awesome you are. But, at the end of the day, it's really those people that are telling you, hey, maybe you need to start thinking about doing this a little bit better, or work a little bit harder, or maybe you're, not necessarily making the right decisions. And again, I think those people are the ones that are the most importantly family members for sure.
You talked a little bit about family and with regards to your parents. I think it always starts there for the student athletes, but even for the coaches. At one time you were a student athlete, they helped raise you, guide you. I always said it's like this: a person's on that straight course, but they just need that little nudge just to get back on course a little bit. Kind of go into who your mom and dad were, and let's just talk on dad, how he helped you to become not only the student athlete, but the person you are now as a coach.
So I have an interesting story. My biological father, I'm actually a junior after him. He was in our life plenty when we were younger, but my mom and him split when I was probably in 9th or 10th grade. And then my mom had since remarried, and my stepdad has really, since that time, has really been the father figure in my life. He was the one that definitely would tell me when I was stepping out of line. He wasn't afraid to give me the stone cold facts and the truth. And the best part about it is, I'm 38 years old, and he does that to this day. He's still a guy that if I have a tough decision to make, I'm calling him. He's going to help set me straight. That's for sure.
Yeah. And the tough thing is also with regards to sometimes when there's a remarriage, and let's be clear. I mean, we go a little personal sometimes, a little bit on our show outside the games.
Sure.
With regards to it can be a little bit challenging because you have to redirect your focus. Who's dad, mom, that type of thing. When you went through that, was that a little bit tough?
I think it was pretty easy for us, myself and my 2 brothers, because my mom was always our kind of strong parental figure all the way growing up until I was in high school and when she met my stepdad. So it was a pretty easy transition for us. And my stepdad made it even easier because we just knew he cared about us. At the end of the day, I think especially when you're a young man, you're just looking for someone to grasp onto that actually cares about you. They don't just care about you for what you can do for them, but they truly want to make sure that you're successful. And that's everything, right? Not just athletics. That you want to, those type of people that are going to want success for you in your relationship, success for you in your career path, and success for you academically. And that's really what my stepdad was able to do for us. And obviously my mom was a huge part of that as well.
Coach Ford, and you were talking about that extension. Can you kind of mention some mentors for you with regards to really that helped you maybe guide you regard rather than just your mom and dad or
Sure.
stepdad, but regards to others that were in your life that made a, you were maybe you faced a challenge and you just needed a little bit of a nudge to in a certain direction. You recall any of those?
Obviously for me, a lot of those are through athletics. I know there's really three or four people specifically that really helped me. The first guy is a guy by the name of Scott Bedsfog. Scott, I believe, is coaching up at Kamiak now, coaching running backs at Kamiak. But he was my ninth grade football coach at Richmond Junior Football, and he was a guy that really inspired me to be the best version of myself. I kind of was a kid when I was younger, struggled a little bit. I was a little bit chubbier than some of the other guys. And, when I was in sixth, seventh grade, I was a lineman. And, in eighth grade and then going into my ninth grade year, Coach Bedfog was like, man, you can move, you can run. And I started running the ball a little bit more in eighth grade. And then he recruited me hard to play for him in ninth grade. And that was at a time where you couldn't play junior football and freshman football. So I actually, instead of playing freshman football at Mount Lake Terrace, I played for Scott, and he was a huge, factor for me. I think just moving forward as a human being. Still talk to him to this day. He actually came up to Canada a couple of times to check out some games when I was at Simon Fraser, and I'm sure when we get fans back in the stands, he'll be, in Husky Stadium checking out the dogs here soon. But outside of him, I had some really good coaches in college. Doug Heyer was our offensive line coach. I played running back, obviously, in college, and we were with the offensive line almost every single meeting. He really helped me shape my football identity in terms of the X's and O's, just how you conduct business. And then my last probably mentor that I really still talk to this day as well as a guy named Gary Kilgore. Gary coached me at Linfield as well, but he was actually my track coach. Obviously we won national championship at Linfield playing football there, 41-4 during my playing days at Linfield, go Cats. But with all the great football coaches that I had, and I had plenty of them, Gary was by far the most influential mentor and coach that I had at Linfield. He had a way to make you believe in yourself before you believed in yourself. And again, he was just a great mentor to me. Actually reconnected with him just a few weeks ago and got all caught up. He's athletics director now at Linfield. But again, I've had some really good mentors, and those are again guys that still to this day at 38 years old, I call when I need advice and when I need that mentorship again, because I think that's one good thing about mentors. If you have good ones, they never leave you.
And I was just going to touch on that. You kind of segued right into what I was going to say with regards to how a good mentor stays consistent and you always rely on that mentor. That never goes away.
Absolutely. And those guys are certainly guys that I would lean on heavily for pretty much any major decision that I've made. And I know obviously my coach career, I've been to a bunch of different stops, and I can tell you with all certainty before every stop, those guys got a call.
Tell me, going to Simon Fraser, I find that interesting with regards to where, we knew you at Simon Fraser. We got to meet you the first time. Of course, your brother, Tracy Ford, does Team FSP, Ford Sports Performance in Bellevue. But we met you, and tell me what your experience was with Simon Fraser. Because I always look at those type of things as kind of a springboard into where you're at today.
Yeah, I think going into it, I never really thought about it in that respect. I looked at Simon Fraser as a kind of a sleeping giant. I mean, when you look at it location-wise, right there in Vancouver, British Columbia, academically, it's a world-renowned university. It's up in the rankings in terms of international universities, and it's only 2.5 hours from Seattle, right? So I kind of knew that if you got the right person up there and you brought the right staff up there and you started recruiting the right players up there, you really could have a chance to win. And obviously we didn't do as well as we would like to. You go in a game plan to win every game, but I think you saw some huge strides. I think some things we did there. We won our first game in over 4 years. Our first game that we played there in 2019, we got our first Division II and conference win since 2014. So there was a lot. Actually, since 2012, I should say. But overall, there was a lot of success. We raised our team GPA that final semester I was there. I think we were above a 3.0. And if anybody knows anything about Simon Fraser, if you can get a 3.0 at Simon Fraser, you're doing something right. So the experience was awesome. Honestly, I was prepared to be there for a very long time. I just was presented with an opportunity at the University of Washington that I just couldn't turn down. Being a Seattle guy, being able to have a chance to coach the dogs, especially with Coach Lake, a guy that I've developed a relationship over the years with from my time at Stadium High School. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great experience at Simon Fraser, and really wouldn't trade it for the world. Obviously, I wish I could have been there a little bit longer to win a few more ball games, but overall, it was definitely an excellent experience.
I like that experience that you kind of brought out about how, those things you don't forget. You don't forget where you were, and it always stays with you. I think that's very interesting about that. Coach Ford, let's talk about academics. Now, let's talk a little bit about you, though, my friend. Academically, Coach Ford, how were you with school, and how were there some challenges along the way with school as a student athlete? And do you kind of find yourself, when you talk to, say, student athletes yourself, potentially, scouting, or if it's recruiting or whatever it is, you kind of see a little bit of yourself in some of these student athletes?
Yeah, fortunately for me, my mom was such a big advocate for education that I almost had no choice but to be kind of good at academics. And I liked school. As a young kid, I really liked school, and I took to it pretty well in terms of just the structure of school, just having something to look forward to. I really enjoyed learning. And so in high school, I was a pretty decent student. I think I was a 3.6 student, finishing up at Mount Lake Terrace. Really was probably a little bit better in the humanities, English, writing, that kind of stuff, reading. I liked math, and I wasn't really a science guy, though. And I didn't really realize that until I went to Linfield, and I was a PE major, and in PE, you got to take anatomy, you got to take physiology, right? You got to take exercise phys. And I struggled a little bit there. So whenever I talk to our guys or guys that we're recruiting on the recruiting trail, I can definitely identify. I think everybody has their strong suits, and I think it's really important to identify those. Obviously, continue to hone those strengths, but also not be afraid to get help with your weaknesses. I know the first time I ever had a tutor was in college. In high school, I never needed one. And I remember thinking at first when they were offering tutoring, I was like, I don't need a tutor. Tutors are for dumb kids and, things like that, until I hit anatomy and I was like, yep, I'm gonna need that tutor, right? And so I think it's really important, especially for student athletes now, to find out what they're good at, see what they're weak at, and when you're weak at something, do not be afraid to ask for help. I think, working in the public schools district, I worked at Tacoma Public Schools for 4 years. I know there's plenty of access. You just got to be willing to ask. You got to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable and say, hey, I need help.
Coach, isn't there something to be said about the aspect of just intimidation? When you talk about a student athlete, when it comes to eye contact, we hear a lot of that, from coaches and how they mention to these student athletes, kind of this era of student athletes with regards to eye contact. Make sure you look the coach in the face. If there's help you need, go get it. Don't wait for the counselor to come and approach you. You seek the counselor. You talk to them. You look after your grades. Don't wait for them to just be posted by somebody else. You go find out. Isn't that something that student athletes, you find that have to really work at that?
Yeah, no doubt. I know that was something that when I was at Stadium High School, we really preached that to the kids, and we were very active doing so. We would do weekly grade reports where some kids don't ever check on their grades till they get a grade, right? And we made sure that every week they at least knew what their progress was. And if there was issues, if there was an area of struggle, then we had the resources to get those guys help. And I think, overall, we did a great job in terms of getting guys graduated from Stadium High School. And, as you know, Stadium High School is probably one of the more tougher academic schools or with public schools, especially in Tacoma School District. So again, identifying where you need help and then flat out getting the help is huge. And again, I think hopefully the stigma is starting to go away, because I think there was a bit of a stigma, especially when I was in high school. Like if you needed extra help, that meant you weren't smart. And that couldn't be more far from the truth. You can be the smartest person in the world. If you don't understand the material, you can't really utilize your intelligence. And so I think, again, identifying and getting that help you need is crucial.
I think bigger than identifying it, it's crucial to be decisive.
Yes.
That word decisive, being decisive, quick on it, because it's like a student athlete that's a player on the field. Yep. You can't be slow to reacting on the field and how you got to be at a play. If coach needs you there, what play are we running? You have to be decisive. It's the same thing about academics.
There's no doubt, especially when it comes to that help aspect. If you think you got it, you think you got it, you think you got it, and all then you're failing that class. Well, you never really had it, right? So again, like you said, identifying it right now and saying, hey, I need to act on it. I need to make a decision on this now is definitely critical for future success.
Nice, nice. Go into a little bit as far as, was there a lot difference as far as what Simon Fraser was running? And you're looking at the academics there. Now you go to University of Washington. Academically, was there much of a difference there? And really, from an aspect of play on the field, was there a little bit of a difference there now that you're at University of Washington?
Well, you'll start with the academic side. What is really neat about the two schools is they're both really good academic schools that have a lot of resources. So I think from that aspect, they're very similar. We've got a very challenging course load here at University of Washington, was very similar at Simon Fraser, but you also had a lot of programs in place, people in place to help. So I think that was huge. Obviously the play on the field is a lot different. Division II, going to the FBS Power 5 level, everybody's a little bit longer, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. And development-wise, obviously, with what Coach Lake and the rest of the coaching staff has done here, they've developed guys. And obviously, we were in the process of developing guys at Simon Fraser, which I know Coach Rigel will continue to do a great job of up there. But, I think on the field's a little bit different. The speed of the game is a little bit faster, obviously. Guys a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, it's still about, 11 guys playing as hard as they can for the guy next to them. And I think that's one thing that's very consistent culturally. Everything that Coach Lake talks about in our program here at UW, we were saying very similar things at Simon Fraser. I actually remember the first team meeting, obviously over Zoom, back in March that I was in. And a lot of the things Coach was saying, I was like, man, I was saying that same stuff. That's crazy, right? So culturally, it's been really nice to be in a place where, they care about the kids. We care about our kids here. They're not just pawns in the scheme of college football. They are individuals, human beings, guys that we know have much more interest and talents than just playing football. And so I think that part has been really cool here at University of Washington, just to be in the almost exact same culture we were trying to build up there at Simon Fraser.
Yeah, Coach Ford, there's something to be said about that too, with regards to, I like how you put that, because here at Outside the Games, we talk about the person and the player, but the person first, because it's all about character. At the end of the day, you're looking at aspects of these student athletes. When football is done, and it will be done, sometimes it's hard to think about that, because you remember high school went blur. Next thing you know, you're a senior, you're about to go to college. Something to be said about this football, it goes, you love it, it doesn't love you. And you're teaching these student athletes that, look, I want you to be a better son. I want you to be a better, eventually you're going to be a better father. You're at some point, a better husband. And do you look at that as far as your experiences that you were able to go through at Stadium High School and Linfield, and then being a coach at Simon Fraser? Every step of the way, there was some teaching moments for you on how you could improve your character and who you are.
There's no doubt about it. I think, especially, I really got to be retrospective. I spent time at Linfield coaching, Southeastern Oklahoma, University of Puget Sound, but that time at Stadium, it always stuck with me, right? That we are building much more than just a product on Friday night. We're making sure that guys are going on, and if they, out of high school, right, we don't care if they play college football. It's fantastic they do. But if they don't, we want to make sure that they move on. And again, like you said, we want them to be great employees. We want them to be great boyfriends, maybe husbands someday. At some point, like you said, they'll have children. I used to tell our guys that, I want to get that invite, man, to the wedding, man. You get, your son or daughter's firstborn. I want to get that picture sent to me. And I think those things have always really stuck with me, since going back to college at Simon Fraser and now here at University of Washington, that at the end of the day, these young men, they are young men. And you, as a coach, have a very distinct responsibility to make sure that they go and do things the right way when they go out into their communities. And that's a huge push. And I know that's something that Coach Lake really believes in. And, he talks about it all the time, but it's that built for life. We want guys that, regardless of if they play in the NFL for 10 years or if they never, see a snap in the league, we want those guys to move on and be better people. We want those guys to build their communities the right way and be a positive influence, throughout their community, and be positive role models within it as well.
I like how you put that. I really do. You hit it right on the head. I mean, as far as, getting these student athletes to realize how important it is to be good people, and the character is everything, and it's looked at that way. Coach, you touched on something earlier with regards to, you know, as a student athlete, you learn a lot from different coaches, and then eventually you see you eventually, hey, you turn into a coach. And do you find yourself when you are coaching that you've grabbed, because you did say this earlier, you kind of grab a little bit something from somebody else, and you notice, you say, oh my gosh, I'm saying what he said, or I'm putting a different spin on it, I'm using it at something in my tool belt, and I'm putting a different spin on it, but I'm bringing something out. Does that always hit you sometimes?
There's no doubt about it. I know I talked to several coaches about, football coaches in general, we're the best at taking ideas. Not necessarily stealing ideas, right? Not stealing them, but just taking them and making them our own, right? I think football in general has been so pivotal for anybody that's ever played it, anybody that's ever coached it. And so we kind of, take little things that are really good in one program or somewhere you've been or someone you've been around, and you just take those little pieces and make them your own, right? I think that's really crucial. And if you find a good football coach, I can guarantee you they've done that plenty in their career.
We've visited some colleges, and this was pre-COVID, of course, where we visited colleges, and we noticed a lot of things about student athletes and about the players on the field. Something coaches really taught them to understand is that number one, you don't know when your number is going to be called, so you always got to be ready. That's true and formal. That's truthful there. But the other thing about it is that you don't burn a bridge. You
Sure.
don't burn a bridge with what information you're getting from the coaches. It's hard. Let's be clear. We were all young once, and sometimes we think that we may know more than what we think. But that information that these coaches give, isn't that very true with regards to not burning bridges? Because you don't know when you're going to need that back.
Yeah.
Or maybe that referral that person gives you.
100%. And a lot of, not just in coaching, but the way the world works, right? It's not necessarily who you know, it's who knows you. And I think creating those relationships, especially in the recruiting process, is really important as well. I can speak to a really specific situation. We recruited a guy, really good offensive lineman out of the state of Washington. He was committed to Simon Fraser, and in the midnight hour, literally the last weekend of official visit, to get an FCS offer. And he calls me. He's honest with me. He tells me exactly, hey, this is just my dream. This is what I want to do. And that kid and I, we were just texting earlier today. Him and I have built a lifelong, I recruited him 2 years ago, right? But him and I have developed now a lifelong relationship because we had a great relationship before that. He was honest throughout. He's burnt no bridge, with me. And so I think that's incredibly important, that not just obviously with recruiting, but just really with whatever you're doing, is when you're building these relationships, cultivate them. Make sure that whenever you leave, whatever terms you are leaving on are good terms, because you never know, again, how someone can help you or how you might be able to help someone else.
And that speaks on the aspect of transfer portal. Once they instituted the transfer portal, it's like, hey, there's that option that the student athlete has. And so I think when you're saying that, hey, if you come up honest, just be straight, just come with that, you gain this word, respect.
100%. You get a ton of respect, because, for every story that I have like that, I probably have 2 or 3 stories where guys just flat out didn't call you back, right? And at the end of the day, you're always going to respect a kid for being honest and upfront. And I think this is the same with coaches too, because I think obviously, coaches are very guilty of this as well. And that's something that I take great pride in. Even here at the University of Washington, there'll be a ton of recruits that, I'll take a look at their film, and probably not for us, but I would rather say, hey, I don't think that you're what we're looking for. You're a really good player. I think that you're going to be able to play college football, just not here, right? And I think that is much better than the no response or the, hey, we'll get back to you later response. Because again, kids deserve honesty just like coaches do. And I think that two-way street has to be recognized, right? I think,
and both got to do it.
Absolutely.
Both have to do
totally.
it,
right? 100%. That's got to be recognized on both sides of that relationship. And again, I think because I've done a good job with that throughout my career, there might be a lot of kids that have been mad about me not necessarily thinking they're a fit for us. But I know there's never going to be a kid out there mad because I was dishonest with them. And to me, I'd much rather be the bearer of bad news than the guy that can't be honest and, looks like a liar. Because again, at the end of the day, all you really have is your integrity. When I leave this world, hopefully a long time from now, I want people to say that, Coach Ford was a man of integrity. He was a guy that at the end of the day, at least he told me the truth. I might not have liked it always, but at least he told me the truth.
Oh, exactly. Truth is best.
Yes. And it never expires, man. My man G. Scott, he said it all the time. Truth never expires, man.
Not at all. Not at all. Let's talk about COVID. I tell you, Coach, we've talked to some other coaches around the Pac-12, and I tell you, probably about a couple weeks, some of them were just shaking their head going, these other teams are able to play from Midwest on down in the Southeast. They're getting a chance to play. What about us? And we've seen a lot of different things with a lot of the WIA, and again, that's off topic, but at WIA with high school, they're marching on the Capitol, wanting, let's play, let us play. How has it been for you as coaches, you guys watching what's developed? And I know there's been some frustration with the aspect of the Pac-12. We won't go into that, but we'll just highlight on the aspect of what you've kind of seen and how you try to keep your players ready. How have you as coaches stayed ready? Take me through that.
Well, first and foremost, I actually was talking with Coach Lake about this back in August, but he's done a phenomenal job of keeping everybody focused, both players and coaches, staff members, support staff, just keeping everybody focused, really thinking about the things and working towards the things we can control. We can't control COVID. We know that. We can't control what a group of 12 presidents are going to talk about, right? Or in their medical staff. So we really did a great job, I think, of practicing as hard as we could when we had OTAs, training as hard as we could in our training sessions. And then as coaches, just doing as much in the preparation as we possibly can. Obviously, when you don't know your opponent, you can't necessarily prepare for an opponent, but you can certainly prepare your scheme, make sure all the details are ironed out, and really take a look introspectively on what we can do to be a better football program. And I think, honestly, I really think, and I'm very confident that when the dust settles, I think our preparation and really worrying about what we can control is going to really help us in this shortened season.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, to be honest with you, Coach Ford, 2020 has been a dumpster fire.
To say the least.
There's an actual GIF. I'll never forget this GIF. It's a dumpster rolling down a flood on fire. I think of 2020 exactly like that.
That's pretty accurate. It's been quite a challenge for pretty much everyone. Obviously here in America, but across the globe. And one thing that I think is pretty neat about it is you do get to see who's focusing on the things that can control, who's really working hard. And I think you're going to see that on display whenever we play, and then hopefully whenever Washington high schools and Oregon high schools have a chance to play as well.
Yeah, and with that, with COVID and you were seeing other people get the chance to play, but I noticed you highlighted this, that you focused on yourselves. You can't worry about anything else. You may see it eye-wise, and the coaches may comment on it, but at the end of the day, it's what you can control, right?
No doubt about it. I mean, obviously, as a human being and as a competitor, as a football coach, when you're seeing other guys playing on Saturday, you want to play. You want to be out there competing, and I think that definitely stings a little bit, seeing other guys play. But nobody else in our league was playing, and no one that we're competing against for a conference championship is playing. And that's one of our big goals as a program, is focus on what we can do and try to win a Pac-12 championship.
And seeing how it's all developing, obviously there's been some sense of you guys in the Pac-12 returning somewhere in late October. Is that right?
Yeah. So I believe the press release was out on Thursday or Friday, and November 7th should be week 1 for the Pac-12. And I know this, Coach Lake has been on record as saying it, but we've got about 5 weeks to get ready, and the dogs will be ready.
Nice. Has something that the coach is worried about is, because you touched on this, the aspect of being ready. And this is what we found out a little bit with COVID. I mean, I've seen some training that would blow your mind. Empty kegs being moved, chairs being knocked over, bean bags, sand traps. I mean, these student athletes have been very creative when it came down to COVID and how they can self-train. But some haven't been able to. And so with injuries being possibly a hey, I got 5 weeks to get our guys ready. Is there some concern there with regards to that about COVID? I mean, you can't control COVID, but you're hoping that your players are taking that information from the coaches to, hey, I better stay in shape.
Well, I think, Coach Saha and our strength staff have really done a phenomenal job really throughout COVID. Obviously when we were not able to be on campus, everything was remote, but I know our guys were motivated. They were holding each other accountable. And that's the biggest thing. There was only so much our coaches can do, right? We can't train for the guys. We can't be with the guys. We can't mandate them to work out, but their teammates can hold themselves accountable. And I think our older leadership, guys that are kind of upperclassmen, guys that have played a bunch, and even some of our up and coming guys that are really hungry, I think did a great job just holding each other accountable. I'm sure you saw some of the videos. Our guys are posting videos of their workouts, and one guy will post and another guy will reply, and all of a sudden now you got 50 guys showing each other what they're doing. And I think whenever you can have those player-led groups in those type of times, you're going to have success. And so I think those guys did a phenomenal job of really dialing it in. And then once we got them back on campus, again, I think our strength staff does as good of a job as anybody in the nation. I'd put Coach Saw up there with anybody in the nation. And our guys were preparing hard. We were preparing hard like we were going to play Michigan September 1st, right? And so, we really kind of stayed to that until the course changed. It changed a little bit, okay, when we were going to get ready for Stanford September 26th, right? Course changed a little bit after that. And we still, again, kept that consistency in terms of, all right, well, cool. This is the plan. This is what we're doing. The plan changed a little bit, but this is what we're doing. And again, I think that's really a testament to Coach Lake's leadership. And again, I think our guys are going to be excited to be rolling tomorrow.
And I thought of a word that kind of brought up something about how you were saying, like, some of our players, our student athletes are posting videos and everything. The word that comes up is contagious. It becomes contagious because they're sharing. They're responsible. I mean, it's kind of hard in a Zoom world to do a Zoom call and train. I mean, you can give information, but when it comes to the training, that's your time. That's the student athlete's time.
100%. And again, I think what you said is 100% right. That word contagious really explains a lot. If you're a guy in a position group and you see two other dudes in your position group and they're busting their butts and they're, posting high scores in our competitions and those things, you get motivated or you get lost. and I think our guys, they chose the former. They want to be motivated. And again, that really, I think, generated so much excitement when if you were pessimistic about it, there wasn't a lot to be excited about. There was so much uncertainty. But throughout that uncertainty, our guys, again, kept each other going. And I think they did a phenomenal job of just holding each other accountable.
Coach Lake, Jimmy Lake is now there at University of Washington. He gets a chance to get the keys to the Ferrari and the other coaching staff. Tell me what Coach Lake is really trying to get out of this season. Have coaches talked about that? I know they meet, but what has been something that they really are just trying to get a handle on right now to get started?
Well, I think for us right now, Coach Lake's big focus is, hey, we've got OTAs, we've got workouts going right now. Let's get after it. And let's do it to the best of our ability. Our coaching staff, all of our position coaches, our coordinators, they've done a phenomenal job of just laying out the framework, right, of everything we need to do, everything we can do during this time. And I don't think we've left any stone unturned. That's one thing Coach Lake really preached to us as a staff is like, hey guys, listen, we know we can't control when we're going to play, but what we know right now is we got time. Right. So right now we should be, studying as much as we can, looking at what other people do in the NFL, other Division I programs that are really successful, and seeing how that can fit into what we want to do for 2020 and then obviously and beyond.
Yeah. And I found this out too. Some coaches have said this with regards to a good offense or actually a good defense makes the offense better and vice versa. So a lot of times there can be plays wrinkled in the playbook. There can be things that, hey, maybe we should try this. Maybe we can add this wrinkle to how things go. But it's also about personnel. You have to have the right personnel in order to run what you want to run, right?
Sure. I think, every coordinator's got their philosophy. But at the end of the day, I think the best ones are going to, have their philosophy based off the players that they have. And I think, both Coach Donovan Coach K have done a phenomenal job, both offense and defense. And then obviously Bob Gregory, our special teams coordinator, they are doing what we're good at. You know, I think one thing that we used to say all the time at Simon Fraser, and then the same holds true here, is we're not going to spend a lot of time worrying about what our guys aren't good at, right? We're going to really focus on, hey, what are our guys really good at? Let's do that. Now let's do that so they can get the most out of their ability.
And also, is there a thing about you worry about yourself? You really can't worry about what other people are doing. I mean, you're paying attention what the offenses, what they run, maybe their schemes. I get that, but at the end of the day, you have to worry about yourself as an organization. It could be a company, it could be an employer, but an aspect of football and coaches, you have to worry about yourself too.
No doubt about it. I think that's one thing that's been really cool under Coach Lake's leadership is he really is focused on Washington football. He told me that one of the first days I was on the job. He said, you know what, I don't really give a crap about what anybody else is doing because they're not in this building, right? And that's kind of the mantra of our coaching staff is, hey, we can control Washington football. Coach Lake is in charge of Washington football. And at the end of the day, if we can control that and we do a really great job of, preparing our kids for what that looks like, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing.
Go into a little bit of what you do as quality control, X's and O's, and analyst. Man, you're analyzing something.
Oh yeah, man. We are all the time, all day, all night rolling. We do a lot of film work. There's another offensive quality control on our staff. His name's Peyton McCollum. So him and I work very closely together. We're helping get practice stuff ready, scripts ready. We're really working on opponents for the most part a week ahead. We always want to make sure our coaching staff never comes into a Sunday meeting without knowing exactly what that defense is going to do. That way we can make our game plan accordingly. And so, we're really kind of if it needs to be done, we get it done type of guys behind the scenes. And obviously when you go from being a head coach to a position where you're not necessarily on the field, right? It's different. But what has been really rewarding about it is I feel every part is important to the success of our program here at Washington as I did at Simon Fraser.
Right.
And I think, again, that's another testament to Coach Lake's leadership. He empowers us all, every role on our staff, whether that's, the coaching staff, the support staff, recruiting staff, everyone plays a pivotal role in making sure this program can be one of the best programs in the country.
Hey, it's quality control, man. You guys are analyzing. You're on top of it. I can definitely see that.
Yes.
Now, Pac-12 has been known, especially in the North Division. That North Division is interesting. You got the South Division, right, in the Pac-12, but that North Division is pretty competitive.
Yes.
What are you guys – so with regards to the Pac-12 on the north side and the whole Pac-12 in general, a lot's been said all over the country that the Pac-12, great offenses. But I think the thing is something to be said is that Washington's trying to build a good defense too. Always trying to have a good defense. You want to be known more than just they're a West Coast offense. There's a little bit of spread, sprinkling a little bit of pro style, but their defenses, it's not the SEC. But there's those people that say that. Now, but what are the coaches? What have you noticed that your staff is trying to do? How to build a better defense with that offense to go well with that high-powered offense?
Well, I think really when you look at our program, the key word Coach Lake talks about all the time is we're going to be aggressive. We want to be a team that's in your face, physical. We're going to be tough. And I think that is really what we want to be on both sides of football. Obviously, really all three phases of the game, including special teams. So defensively, if you really look at the success we've had, I know, like you said, the national perception is, we don't play defense out here. But when you really look at the numbers and the people that are in the know, the University of Washington has been one of the best defensive teams in the nation over the past 6 years, really since Coach Lake became the play caller on defense. And so, I know there's a lot of people that want to say other places are DBU, but all I know is last night in offense threw for 600 yards that Coach Lake was pretty good against the last 6 years.
Well, and there's been a plethora of DBs that Washington has had throughout history. So let's be clear. People can claim DBU all they want to, but Washington has had their own as well. But again, you can't worry about others. You got to worry about what you're doing. But the defense, that's something that Coach Lake takes pride in, obviously.
No doubt. I think our defensive staff, they just do a phenomenal job. not just with X and O's, but with just really building relationships with their guys. One thing you'll notice about Washington football is our guys play hard. They are going to play hard. Defensively, we're going to absolutely fly around. And wherever the football is, there's going to be 11 hats to it. And I think, again, that's just part of the process with our coaching staff, building those relationships. They want to play hard for their position coaches. They want to play hard for Coach K. Those are really, I think, fundamental cultural things that have been built here at the University of Washington that I don't see changing anytime soon. Those guys are going to continue to play with energy and passion. And again, our defense definitely has been one of the best in the nation for a reason, and obviously has a lot to do with our coaches and players.
And Washington, let's be clear, Washington has been in the college football playoff. When the college football playoff was instituted not too long ago, Washington was one of the 4 teams. So it can be done. Hey, Coach, just to talk a little bit about, socially, some of the things that are going on right now. And again, some say, hey, I don't want to really talk about it, but there's been this thing about Black Lives Matter. And obviously what we've seen, not on the George Floyd issue, but I think over time, this stuff was talking about, 1991. This goes way back when, police brutality and things of that sort. Now, there are good cops, but the thing is, though, there are some bad apples that can be in a basket, okay, that go bad. But what is your take on regards to what we've seen socially with regards to the Black Lives Matter and really it's really all lives, true, but really when you look at Black lives, this is what's been affected socially. There's been a lot of injustice in that aspect. So take me through what your thought is about that, and really how you've been able to be supportive of your student athletes when it comes to these issues.
Well, I think really during this pandemic, and obviously the tragedies really back to back, where we had Ahmaud Arbery, we had Breonna Taylor, and we had obviously George Floyd. Those were things that I think really affected me, obviously, as an African American. My father's African American, my mom's Filipino, and so for our family and for our players, it was important that we all took time to talk. Coach Lake made that very, very clear. We had a team meeting, and he really wanted an opportunity for our players to share their feelings. I can imagine how it feels to be a 15 to 22-year-old African American male watching these things happen. I'm 38 years old, and I've seen these things happen my whole life, so I can compartmentalize it a little bit better. But I think one of the most important things in our program was making sure our players knew we were there for them, and that we understood how they're feeling. We understood that they might be angry, that they might be hurt, and that's okay. And that we were there for them to discuss it. But not just that, Coach Lake has a really good plan to really try to influence the progress, right? We were one of the first schools in I know we're the first school in the Pac-12 for sure, and I think we're one of the first schools in the nation to get all of our guys registered to vote. And again, this has nothing to do with politics. We don't really care who you vote for, but just having a better understanding that if you want positive change, you have to be a part of that process. And I think for our guys and for me personally, it's not a political issue. I think too much has been made in our media, and obviously it's an election year, all those things, but too much has been made of Black Lives Matter as some organization. And when I say Black Lives Matter, Kevin, I don't mean some organization people are giving money to. I mean, people that look like me, their lives matter. And honestly, it's almost a situation like you said, when people say all lives matter, well, they do. That is a given. That is very obvious. But if Black lives don't matter, then that can't be true, right? And so I think that's really, at the end of the day, how I feel about this issue, that it is not a political one. It is not a left or a right issue. This is a humanitarian issue, and it affects every single one of us, whether you're a person of color, whether you're identify as Caucasian, it doesn't really matter. It affects all of us as Americans. And I think if we can kind of move forward as a nation to go, hey, this is a societal problem. This is not a Republican problem, a Democratic problem. It doesn't mean if you vote for a particular party that makes you a racist, just like if you vote for another party, it does not, free you from being racist. So I think, again, overall, it's one thing that I've been really impressed with is our youth. You know, I've been really impressed with this younger generation. You know, I know when I was in college, social issues, they were there, but I don't think we were as in tune to them. You know, when I was, 17 to 22, and you look at these guys, these high school players even, right? College guys in the NFL now, these younger guys that, and women, I should say, that have really taken ownership of change. You know, and I think that's, really at the end of the day, all anybody wants is to be in a country where everyone can feel comfortable in their skin no matter what it looks like.
That's strong, Coach. That's very strong. And it's nice that you give your student athletes a voice. I mean, sometimes it can be just, hey, come on, let's talk. Let's let you get out how you're feeling. That's so strong and so important. And I'm glad Coach Lake and the whole staff and yourself have really been supportive. Well, I tell you, we've had Coach Thomas Ford on with us, quality control analyst, the X's and O's. And I tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you on our show on Outside the Games, Coach Ford. Hey, we wish you best in the North Division, not only in the Pac-12, but all over the Pac-12. I know you all want to get a shot at that college football playoff, and definitely, hey, try to bring some hardware and put it in that case.
Absolutely. We could always use a little more hardware at Husky Stadium. Well, Kevin, I appreciate you having me, man. It's been awesome to be on.
Hey, it's been a pleasure to have you on. We appreciate you and really making time. Because a lot of time, hey, there's something that Coach Lake said, you have time, but we all have the same amount of time. It's just what we do, right? Yeah.
100%. And again, I'm glad I was able to get on, and appreciate what you guys are doing for obviously the sport and all these student athletes around the United States.
It means a lot to us. Thank you very much, Coach, for that.